Story 1. The Christmas Caller. It all began on Christmas Eve in the quiet Chicago suburbs. The Jensen family, David, his wife Claire, and their 7-year-old son Tommy, were preparing for their annual holiday gathering. The house glowed with warmth. The fireplace crackled. The Christmas tree sparkled with red and gold lights, and the aroma of Claire's gingerbread cookies filled the air. Snow fell silently outside, cloaking the neighborhood in a blanket of white. At 9 p.m., Claire tucked Tommy into bed. "Santa's coming tonight, so you need to sleep, sweetheart." "Okay, Mom," Tommy whispered, hugging his stuffed bear. "Night." Downstairs, the phone rang. David, confused at the late hour, picked up. "Hello?" A low, crackling voice whispered, "Let me in. I'm outside." David's brow furrowed. "Who is this?" Click. The caller hung up. "What was that about?" Claire asked, bringing mugs of hot chocolate. "Just a prank," David muttered, forcing a smile. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. Claire's hand trembled as she glanced at David. He picked up. "I see your tree lights. Let me in." The voice was slow, deliberate, and chilling. David's face turned pale. He looked out the window but saw nothing but falling snow. Claire frowned. "Who keeps calling?" Probably some teenager pulling a prank. But David didn't sound convincing. At 10 p.m., a blood-curdling scream echoed through the house. It was Tommy. David and Claire rushed to his room. "What happened, honey?" Claire asked, holding him close. Tommy pointed to the window, his small hand trembling. "A man was there. He smiled at me." David yanked open the curtains, but outside was nothing but the yard covered in snow. He turned back to Tommy. "It was just a bad dream, buddy. There's nobody outside." David checked all the doors and windows, ensuring they were locked. Then, as he glanced out the living room window, his breath caught in his throat. Standing perfectly still under the streetlight was a figure, tall, cloaked in black, staring directly at the house. The phone rang again. David answered. "I'm closer now. Let me in." David's hands shook as he slammed the phone down. This isn't funny anymore. By 11:30, the figure had moved closer. David watched as it stood just beyond the driveway, its dark form unmoving, featureless. Snow piled at its feet. Then the power went out. "David?" Claire's voice quivered. "What's happening?" David grabbed a flashlight and opened the front door. Outside, the figure was gone. Only a trail of footprints led from the streetlight to their window, and stopped there. Suddenly, Claire screamed from upstairs. David ran back inside. "Tommy's gone," Claire sobbed. David followed a trail of small, barefoot prints leading through the snow toward the trees. Desperately, he shouted Tommy's name, but there was no answer. The final call came at 12:01 a.m. David picked up, his voice shaking. The whisper returned, slow and cruel. "Next year, I'll take another one." Story 2. The Midnight Carolers. Emma had always loved Christmas, but this year was different. She had just moved into her grandmother's old creaky house on the outskirts of Ashwood. The townsfolk often spoke in hushed tones about the property, muttering something about strange visitors, but Emma dismissed it as old village superstitions. Ashwood was known for its traditions, and one of the most unique ones occurred every Christmas Eve: the Midnight Carolers. At exactly midnight, children from the village would visit homes to sing carols. It was an endearing tradition, or so Emma thought. At 11:45 p.m., Emma sat curled up in a blanket, sipping tea and reading an old book by the fire. The snow fell thickly outside, muffling the world in silence. The grandfather clock in the hallway struck midnight, and faint singing began outside her window. Silent night. holy night. The sound sent a chill through her. The voices were soft and melodic, but there was something unsettling about the tone, almost hollow. Emma frowned and peeked through the curtain. 6 children stood in the snow, their faces illuminated by the faint glow of the moon. They wore tattered old-fashioned coats and scarves, as though they'd stepped out of a different century. Their faces were unnaturally pale, and their eyes pitch black, empty voids. "Who are you?" Emma whispered, though she knew they couldn't hear her. The tallest child, a boy with thin, colorless lips, stepped forward. He tilted his head at an unnatural angle. "We've come to sing for you," he said, though his mouth didn't move. The voice echoed strangely in Emma's mind. Emma slammed the curtain shut and stumbled backward, her heart racing. She tried to laugh it off. "I'm overtired. This is just my imagination." But the singing grew louder. "Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace." The words twisted, becoming slow and distorted, like an old record playing out of tune. Emma covered her ears, but the voices pierced through, echoing through every room. The temperature plummeted. Her breath turned visible and frost crept across the windows. "No," Emma whispered, her voice shaking. She ran to the front door and turned the lock to ensure it was secure. A tap, tap, tap sounded at the window. Emma froze. Slowly, she turned to see the children now standing directly outside the glass. The tallest boy smiled, showing sharp, blackened teeth. "Let us in, Emma," he said in a sing-song voice. "It's so cold outside." "How do you know my name?" she cried, backing away. The singing stopped. Silence pressed on the house, heavy and unnatural. Then, all the lights went out. The only sound was the slow creaking of footsteps on the wooden porch. Emma grabbed a flashlight and darted to the phone. Her fingers shook as she dialed the police. "Please, there are children outside my house. They're trying to get in." A voice on the other end crackled. "Miss, calm down. Children, are you sure?" "They're not normal," Emma screamed. "Please hurry." The front door creaked open. Emma dropped the phone, spinning around. In the dim glow of the flashlight, she saw small, wet footprints leading into the house. Her breath hitched. A whisper echoed from the hallway. "We're inside now." She stumbled backward as dark shapes emerged from the shadows. 6 figures, pale and hollow-eyed. The tallest boy stepped forward. "You shouldn't have looked, Emma. Now you'll sing with us." The flashlight flickered and died. In the darkness, Emma's screams mixed with the children's haunting lullaby. By morning, the neighbors found her house frozen solid. Emma sat in the corner of the living room, her eyes wide and vacant, her lips still whispering the carol. Outside, the children had vanished, leaving only their footprints, leading back into the woods